You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to welcome you back to another episode. This is episode 363 of the Snob OS show. And on this week's show, we're going to talk about Apple's foldable iPhone is in trouble. Smart glasses from Apple is coming. Google is powering Siri. We already knew that, but we got a little bit more details. The September iPhone launch history. Sam Altman admits he got it wrong on AI jobs. Big tech is quietly killing DEI. And we've got a simple iOS trick to change how you wake up. So that's what's coming up on this week's show. As per usual, we always want to thank those who have been listening for this far. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, we must let you know that you can support the show financially by going to snoboscast.com/Patreon. And if you join the Patreon, you will get some special treats, including listening to the show live and getting the show a little bit early and getting exclusive content you will not find on this week's show. So let's get into this week's show. We always start with the lowdown. And like I mentioned, the iPhone Fold, the rumored upcoming iPhone phone, it seems like there are some problems with yield issues. Straight from Mac Rumors, Apple's first foldable is now hitting mass production yield problems at the pre-assembly stage. Early reports covered the production delay, but this is a new wrinkle. The manufacturing isn't hitting quality thresholds. With a $2,100 to $2,300 price tag and a fall 26 target still on the table, can the iPhone Fold have any issues when it costs $2,100 to $2,300? And this is a new product that Apple has been working on for a while. Can Apple relaunch the iPhone Fold with these issues with this price tag?
They cannot. And again, I've said it before, and I know people are like, oh, she's just harping on it. But my biggest issue with these types of flip phones is the way that they crease and with the way that the screen looks when it's not folded fully out. And if they can't get this right, then to me, it's not worth trying to get out this year. I would rather them say, this is the delay, we've pushed it to next year, or even if they don't want to put a time frame on it, we've pushed it out because we want to make sure that it's up to the quality that Apple, has come to be known for, blah, 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 PR spiel. But this is what my issue has always been with this type of phone is, are they going to be able to get the materials to cooperate with what they expect? Because we've seen it with other flip phones, that the way the screen looks, whether it bubbles at the edge or whether it's creased. And I'm not 100% surprised by this. The surprise comes in that they hadn't realized this. We're already, might say, in June, so they got maybe 3 or 4 months to figure this out. And I don't know if 3 or 4 months is enough time to get this issue resolved and get it on the product line for production come September.
But I would assume Apple is learning from other manufacturers' mistakes, right? Foldable phone is not anything new. This is not Apple, the first one in. So you would think with all of the trials and tribulations, the learning curves, and now the current state of, quote, foldable phones, I'm surprised Apple is I'm surprised Apple is having issues with doing a foldable phone, knowing the history of foldable phones and knowing that what the other manufacturers had to go through. So it seems like to me that it would be simple for Apple to replicate, but add their little special Apple spiel on it and that be it. And then as they go on and make the fold 2 and the fold 3 and the fold 4, whatever, however far they go, they would iterate on that. But the baseline should be what current foldable phones are now.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that Apple is having issues with a product that's already out there when all they got to do is, add their little Apple magic to it and keep it pushing and iterate as they go on.
And maybe they thought that the materials that they had did fix those problems, but they didn't really see it until they got into like mass production. It's one thing to create a couple unique versions of this as you're prototyping it out, but to get to start to produce it on mass scale, it could be something with the production line, the way they're putting it together, or it could just be the materials itself. But you can't come out with a product like this $2,200
Mm-hmm.
and you have this. I get the whole iterating over time making it better, but you got to start out good out of the gate, and it doesn't sound like they're starting good out of the gate. And $2,200 people are going to be giving them the biggest of side eye if it comes out like this. So I don't know what they do.
But every season, every year around this time, we're always talking about, production issues, or
Mhm.
hardware issues, or materials issues. And then every year Apple launches the device, whether they packaged or repackaged or hid the issues. But around this time, there's always issues reported.
Mhm.
And those issues, I don't want to say don't come to fruition, with the exception of maybe the Siri, the whole Apple Intelligence thing, right?
Mhm.
Most of the time, every time this year, there's always some sort of rumored issues. Again, I don't know if this is journalism hard at work, or is Apple kind of like under promising and
So
over
they can over
delivering.
deliver.
Right. It'll be interesting to see if that's the case for the iPhone Fold, even though it is a new product.
It could be a total spin job. I
Yep.
guess we won't know until we see it. But
Yep. All right, moving on to the next story. Apple smart glasses are real. We talked about the Ray-Bans. We've talked about these new version from Gemini, I think a couple weeks ago. And it seems like Apple is, of course, reportedly testing 4 different frames for their own smart glasses: a large rectangular frame, slim rectangular frame, a large oval, and a small oval, all targeting a 2026 reveal, not launch. 2026 reveal with a 2027 launch. Like Meta's AI Ray-Bans, these will rely on cameras, which I'm really not feeling, audio, of course, and Siri, but no visual, no AR display, no augmented
no in
reality,
lens type
no
of stuff.
in-lens display. Johnny Shroolji, Johnny Shroolhi,
We'll go
now
with
running,
that.
yeah, now running special projects, including this category, is becoming more real by the week. So, what say you about Apple not only reportedly going to launch smart glasses, announce smart glasses this year, and then launch them next year with 4 different lens displays? Are they jumping the gun, or is this actual real thing that Apple's going to do and make some Ray-Ban-ish, Google XCon, whatever they are called? Is Apple
It's real.
jumping? Yeah, is Apple jumping into the smart glasses category just cause, or do they have a trick up their sleeve?
I think they may have a trick up their sleeve because we've talked about it back when Vision Pro was coming out, and the announcements around it, and we were seeing rumors where it was kind of two different schools of thought. The old school thought was, let's do this version, let's do Apple glasses. And the new school was like, no, let's go with the Quest looking goggles, which we know to be
Division.
Apple Vision Pro.
Uh-huh.
So I think the legwork was already being done for the glasses. I think they had a team that was already doing this, and it was kind of like, which way do we go? Do we go the fully encased goggles, or do we go with the glasses? And the Vision Pro won out, but I don't think they gave up on the glasses. So I think they may have been working behind the scenes, maybe with a smaller team, maybe with a smaller focus, but I think they still worked on this. And I have to say, I do like the idea that they are coming in different frames: the oval, oval or circular, the large and a small oval, and then like a circular frame and a rectangular frame. Because I mean, again, if you're expecting people to wear these, out every day, you have to take in people's aesthetic and the fashion aspect. And people have different style faces, and some frames work better with some face types than others. I have a round face, so I can't wear round glasses because it makes my face even more round. And I think that kind of draws into some of the um, aesthetic and the look of them to give people options. And then you have these different colors. So you have the blue, like you said, the blue, ocean blue, black, and a light brown. So it gives a feel of more of your traditional glasses and not just the same black frames that we've seen on Ray-Ban, the same black frames that we've seen on the new Android XR glasses. So the fact that they're announcing it and basically giving you a preview of what they look like, but they don't expect to actually deliver it until 2027, I think that's a better approach than just trying to kind of rush this out.
But the same thing with the iPhone Fold.
Yeah.
These are two new categories
Mm-hmm.
for Apple. What can Apple do? Well, let me ask you directly.
Mm-hmm.
With the Fold, more importantly, with the glasses, what would make these glasses special enough for you to buy a pair, knowing that they are going to be the same type of functionality as what's already out there? And kind of the same question with the Fold. There's a Fold, Samsung, Google, I'm not going to, Huawei, a bunch of them already make folds.
Mm-hmm.
Apple getting into this category, what can Apple do to make it, outside of it just being Apple made? Do they need to do anything special for you or other people to buy it? Or is it just Apple made it, so that should be enough?
For me, it's going to have to be something special. I'll start with the Fold first, because if you have that type of price tag on it, as I mentioned before, my issues with the Fold is the look when it's closed. I want it to look like an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's opened, the whole materials that are used on the screen, I want them to be top notch, especially if you're shelling out that kind of money. Now, with the glasses, what would make them work for me is, are they useful? Of course,
Okay.
the phone is useful because we use them all the time and we use them in our everyday lives. If I'm going to spend this kind of money on these glasses, what type of advantage is this going to give me other than just being able to record something that I'm looking at? Because again, while it's not as convenient with your phone to record something, we've been doing that because that's what the option is. But it needs to have some usefulness to me. I mean, what can these glasses do for my enhancement of life? Because again, money is tight all around for everybody. People are making decisions on what they spend their money on, and I'm not going to spend my money on something that is not going to provide some significant benefit to me, that's going to make my life easier, that's going to make my life better, outside of just having to say, oh, I have Apple glasses. To me, that's the biggest thing. Now, if this was maybe 4 years ago, I'd be like, heck yeah, I'll buy it because it's Apple. But now it's one of those things where I don't need to keep hoarding tech and buying tech if it's just going to sit somewhere. Similar to the Quest that I bought, it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of sits there. I take it out and I dilly dally with it sometimes. But if I'm going to be spending this kind of money, it needs to be something that I'm going to use frequently to be able to get the best use out of it.
Yeah. I'll probably pass on the glasses simply because I can't see the way they just described them. I
Hmm.
can't see Apple being able to do anything different
Hmm.
than what's already out there. And if they're going to be the same, then I would already have a pair of Ray-Ban AI glasses to record what I see
Hmm.
and utilize some sort of AI and listen to some music, right? I'm
Right.
not paying however much more when my AirPods and my iPhone, I can record what I see when I hold my phone up.
Yep.
I can call Siri or whatever AI chat bot I want to add on there.
Hmm.
And, I can listen to music with my AirPods. So I don't know if I can spend that much more money to get something that really doesn't do anything different. Again, I'm waiting on the augmented reality glasses that look like decent glasses.
Mm-hmm.
That to me says, okay, that's something extra, that's something useful, that's an added thing that Apple normally does. They get into a category and then they add something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the Fold or the glasses doing that. So hate to say it, but my money may stay in my pocket.
Yep, yep. Did you see the rumor that the next AirPod Pros are going to have cameras on them for like sensing for like Siri?
Right. Now, see that I could see that because it's not a camera in the traditional sense. It's not recording
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It's using it for like LiDAR sensing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure they can use that to add some new feature that, oh, you know what? That makes perfect sense. I could
Mm-hmm.
see why AirPods could use cameras. Maybe it be for accessibility feature issues. Maybe somebody who's, having vision impairment. They use the sensors for some sort of echolocation or something that
Mm-hmm.
works in combination with your phone. That is like, okay, I could see that. But we know
Mm-hmm.
the glasses, cameras on the glasses are going to be nothing but for you to record
Yeah,
what you see and take pictures of what you see, which I got a phone I can do that.
basically.
All right. All right. Next story. Like I mentioned, Apple is paying Google $1 billion a year to quote unquote fix Siri. Apple's own AI models weren't cutting it, as we've all talked about for the past couple years. So, like we've mentioned before, they cut a deal, which is reportedly $1 billion a year to license Google's Gemini technology to completely rebuild Siri. Before anyone panics about their data going to Google, of course, I think this is one of the things that I was concerned about. Apple is routing everything through its own private cloud compute infrastructure with end-to-end encryption. So Google never touches your data. That means Google can't sell my data. They can't run ads against my data. They can't SEO my
They can't
data.
track me. They can't see me.
All the things that Google loves to do with their products.
Right.
Apple is paying them $1 billion a year to be like, hey, we ain't doing all that scanning, scraping, searching, selling, right?
We're not giving you access to the gold mine, though.
Right. The rebuilt Siri debuts in iOS 27, again, provided whatever Apple says at WWDC in June, with full chatbot capabilities, web search, file analysis, and multi-step task execution. That'll be interesting to see how Apple executes that or implements that multi-step task execution, because in most cases you got to kind of train it to do these different steps, and it'll be interesting to see how Apple implements that on your phone, on your tablet, whatever, or your Mac, however the case may be. Apple is quietly admitting their AI wasn't good enough and paying the biggest competitor, which Apple and Google's always kind of been frenemies,
They're frenemies.
right?
Yeah.
Because Google was paying Apple X amount of billions of dollars to be the search engine for Safari.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's kind of like Apple, kind of like, all right, you scratched our backs, let's scratch yours, not necessarily a biggest competitor. So I'm interested to see we're all interested to see what Google can do with Siri AI and Apple Intelligence that Apple couldn't.
Right. And my thing is, if Apple's tried to create and fix their own problem, they're now kind of offboarding that to another powerful tech company. And if Google can't get this right or get it the way that Apple is trying to do it, I guess the question is do they completely roll it back or rebrand it? Because if Apple can't do it itself, they can't get Google to do it the way they want, then to me that signals that the expectation that Apple has for this product isn't feasible. So it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out, if Apple is pleased with it, if the consumer is pleased with it. So it'll be interesting to see what this partnership, the outcome of it, not just for, selfish reasons of us using it, but if it doesn't work, what does that mean for Apple and kind of the Apple ethos when it comes to AI in this perspective?
Yeah, I think it'll work simply because people are used to how AI works with other companies, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, all the other ones. We're used to chatbots. We're used to searching the web. We're used to it, right? So
Mm,
I believe this will work now. Siri, now Apple implementing that same type of technology and white labeled, for lack of a better term, on their own product.
mhm,
I think that'll work. Again, not the way I envisioned it, not the way I would want it to work. But
mhm.
again, Apple ain't selling it to me. They selling it to everybody.
Right.
And everybody is used to how chatbots and AI works right now. So
Mhm.
Apple using Google just to say, hey, man, let's just put something out there that resembles how everybody else does it. Maybe Apple, speaking of white labeling, maybe Apple adds their special brand of implementation using shortcuts and using
Mhm.
all these other things that we're used to, package it up to make the interface look Apple.
Mhm.
But once they do that, people will use it just like they use ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Claude, Gemini, Copilot, whatever else is out there.
How they use all the other stuff.
Yeah, and I think Apple has just went to that instead of saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, we want to reimagine how you use Apple Intelligent or
Mm.
AI." Apple's kind of like,
Mm.
we just need something that works like everything else,
Right.
just so they
Like
can get off our
everything else,
back.
let's just get it going.
Yeah, which is sad. Again, the same kind of subject that we're talking about with the iPhone Fold,
Mhm.
same thing we said about the rumored Apple glasses, kind of the same thing with AI. Apple tried, and now they're like, man, let's just get something out there that people are used to. And we're
Yeah.
used to foldable phones, we're used to smart glasses, quote unquote, and we're used to this version of AI. So Apple is just rolling with what everybody else is rolling with, in my opinion, of course.
Yeah. Oh, what it could have been and what we
Yeah.
expected and to now what we are getting. But
Yeah.
so was life. Life is full of disappointment. So we pivot
Well,
and go with what they
maybe
have.
maybe not disappointment, maybe get in where you fit in, or no, not
Mm,
get in where you fit in. What is the when in Rome, do as the Romans
mm,
do? Not
yeah.
necessarily a defeat, but more like a concede.
A pivot.
Yeah, or a pivot. We'll
Yeah.
call it a pivot.
Yeah.
All right, so the last story that I have in the lowdown is Apple is breaking the September iPhone tradition. For
Hmm.
the first time, Apple is splitting its iPhone lineup across two launch windows. Normally in the fall, Apple announces, let's just say coming up this year, they are announcing the iPhone 18. They'll do the 18 Pro. They'll do the 18 Pro Max. And then last year, they even did if they keep the iPhone Air, which I haven't seen any rumors saying they will or won't. My
Mhm.
guess is they won't, since we haven't seen any rumors
It's
that they
been real
will.
quiet.
Right. So traditionally, the regular, the plus, or whatever new version, and then the pros come out in the fall.
Mhm.
Later on in March, they announced like the budget model, the
Mhm.
the the
The
E
SE
version, the
or E
SE
now.
or the E or whatever you want to call it, which still is like two launches. But this year, what they're doing, what they're rumored to be doing, is they're only going to announce the 18 Pro, the 18 Pro Max, and this new Fold that they're doing.
So
And then
basically the high-end versions of
early.
the iPhone.
And then they're going to wait until the spring to announce the 18 regular, and then maybe the low budget 18E version with the, just the entry level one. So, which again, like I said, is different than earlier, previous years, because you could pretty much get all of them and then have to wait for like the extra special version. So,
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see. Well, let me ask you, if this is true,
Mhm.
how do you think people will accept this, or if they'll accept it at all, or is this just people buy the pros and pro maxes anyway based on sales, so it's like, well, we'll just push that back since everybody wants the nicer versions anyway.
So it's an interesting approach, and I want to know why they are spreading it out. I don't know. We've heard the rumors about um, parts and all that stuff, and maybe it's one of those
uh,
things where
uh,
let's just do all our high end ones. Make sure you have those parts and get those put out, and then give it about 6 months to kind of build up. Our next our parts
mm-hmm. The hardware,
reserve, our
yeah.
hardware reserve, and we'll do it later. So it'll be, I don't know, it feels kind of weird, but I guess change is inevitable. So I guess it's just I guess it's just kind of it feels kind of weird. But again, most people, like you mentioned, I think, get the high end versions when they are first released, because a lot of times in these announcements, they don't gloss over
Mm-hmm.
the lower tier ones, but they don't get as much fanfare and
Mm-hmm.
pizzazz
Mm-hmm.
as the larger ones. And they keep adding more devices, and these things keep getting longer and longer. So maybe it's one of those things where it's like, let's use this time to kind of streamline these events and not, just overload people with all the stuff. Or it could just be the fact that Apple's like, hey, we want all the focus on these particular items so we can make the most money. If we have to split it, that that kind of takes away money from this. So it, I could see it being a couple different things on why they take this approach. It's just interesting, and maybe it's the first big decision that John Turner is making as CEO to kind of split this out this way. I don't know. It's a lot of things that could be's of why they're doing this. I don't have a visceral reaction either way to it splitting. It's just different. Feels
Right.
kind of weird.
I assumed it was because sales numbers. Apple
Mm,
looked at their sales numbers of the every time they launch a new version, and over the past couple of years, they say people are really buying the pros and the pro maxes more so than the regulars, right?
hmm
So why don't we just give people what they're paying for, historically speaking, and just launch those, and then put the regulars and the cheap versions on the back burner? That was my first assumption, but you brought
mm.
up a good point. Everybody's talking about chip shortages, and everybody's talking about tariffs. Everybody's talking about hardware resources are hard to come by because these AI data centers are scooping everything up. So maybe Apple is strategically saying, all right, well, if we only got limited hardware supply, we gonna make sure we get the expensive stuff, the expensive devices out the door first. Let people gobble those up, and then, like you said, re-up on the hardware and launch the regular ones when we've resupplied on the hardware. I don't know. I can't think of any other. Well, I guess my additional question would be, how's Apple gonna spin it when these regulars don't show up in September? Is Apple gonna come up with some fancy way of saying, "Oh, we've got some special stuff waiting for you if you are interested in the iPhone 18 regular? Stay tuned because we got some really exciting news." Or is Apple gonna fess up and be like, "Look, man, product hardware is hard to come by. So we had to make a decision and we chose to go this route, but we're not going to leave y'all hanging. Bear with us as things stabilize, as the economy stabilizes. We will also launch X, Y, and Z. If you're interested in those are coming, you just got to wait."
Honestly, I don't know if they're going to say anything. I think they're just be like, here, this is what we got to give you. Here, you want this or you don't. I,
Right.
I really think that's probably the approach, because expounding on it just brings more attention to it.
True. But at the same time, people who are not techies like us, who have been talking about the iPhone
Mm,
and researching the stories and kind of know or are attuned to what the reports are,
mm,
we can say, "Oh, I'll just wait till March,"
mm.
versus somebody who don't follow tech. And Apple says we got the iPhone Pro and the Pro Max. They're going to be like, "Wait a minute."
Where the other one's at?
where and maybe they'll go on the internet and do some research and be like, "Oh, okay, Terrance and Nica said yada yada yada," but I
Mm.
don't feel like most people are doing that research. They're gonna sitting at the TV screens or on their phones and whatever, and Apple saying what you said, just said, "Hey, this is what we got." It seems like it was gonna open up the more questions. I don't know. I
It
don't know.
could, but Apple, they are master marketers. So I'm sure if they do say something, they're going to spin it and market it and make it seem like it's some exclusive or you're
But
getting something great
but
to
they
kind
will
of
say
appease
something.
people. They could. I,
Uh-huh.
I personally, I think they're just going to say this is what we have, and they're going to
Uh-huh.
go all out and make it all fancy. And they may put out like a press release or something,
Uh-huh.
to address it, but I don't think it's going to be anything. outlandish or even mildly. I think they're just going to drop a press release about what's coming next year and call it a day.
All right. All right. Time will tell. All right. That's all I got for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string. And like I mentioned at the top, Sam Altman says he was wrong about AI and jobs. Just this week in
Surprise.
Sydney, OpenAI CEO publicly reversed course, saying the rapid rollout of AI will not cause the widespread white collar job losses he previously predicted. This is a big shift from one of the loudest voices in the room and worth unpacking. Nica, I ask you, does this mean AI is slower than feared, or that the impact is just harder to measure? We've been talking about how data centers are expensive and how these companies are spending billions of dollars on these data centers and not having the revenue to show for all the expenditures, on top of high schoolers and college graduates booing AI, on top of neighborhoods and city councils and concerned people in the streets. We don't want these data centers in our backyards. Is Sam Altman adjusting his thoughts or trying to cover for the fact that AI, while moving very, very fast, the numbers don't show for it?
I think it's been very easy for people to have these AI hot takes who don't really, even with someone like Sam Altman, who don't really take the time to really look at what the technology is doing and where we're going as a society. So, because he has this huge AI company, of course, he has this huge hot take. But once you get in it, I mean, really in it, because OpenAI, Perplexity, Claude, Anthropic, all these people are really knee deep in it. And now they're seeing the complexities behind it and the additional things that kind of spurn off, from it as well. So it's one of those things where people, I don't think their perceptions have changed. I think they have more information. And the more information that you have, you can see, oh crap, I may have spoken too soon. And I've been saying before, I don't think AI is going to take jobs. Are jobs going to be lost to AI? Sure, but they're going to be new jobs created to replace what was lost, because there still has to be human intervention in AI. And I see that for a long time coming. And it's one of those things where the more you know, the more you kind of get into the weeds and what the expectation is and what this technology can do. And when you throw in the perception, the inclinations from people who use the product, then things start to take better shape and you start to get a different perspective and a different view. And honestly, this may change again in the next 5 years. But it's one of those things where, when I've always seen people come out with these hard and fast, hard takes on AI, I'm like, you're getting ahead of yourself. Let's just do this incrementally. Let's look at where we're going, what this looks like, and how it evolves. Because once Chat GPT came out and they put the human element, the consumer element of AI, it completely changed the landscape of what, particularly those in the tech industry know of AI. It completely put a different spin on it and changed the trajectory of it. And so I just think this is one of the things where he is seeing in real time with his company, with his competitors, with anybody who's in this space, that what their initial thoughts and impressions were have drastically changed because, again, people are involved in this now.
Yeah, let me read this other quote. OpenAI CEO said that the rapid rollout of artificial intelligence will not produce widespread white-collar job losses once predicted. He admitted he'd been wrong about the near-term social and economic impact of the technology, noting that human interaction remains essential in many professional roles and that it limits the full replacement by AI systems. Remember, I put that quote in there because when it's all jumped off, he was big
Big talker.
Yeah, man. So I feel like it's one thing to change your opinion or change your stance based on new information, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
Based on the information I got right now, you say one thing and then new information comes up and you be like, oh, I didn't, that's new information or information I hadn't had. Now that I have this information, now this, right? I don't know if that's maybe that's the case. I feel like I feel like they made it wasn't like a hot take. I really feel like they really wanted this job apocalypse thing to actually happen
Hmm.
because it would save money, you get less employee overhead, and all the things, right, that companies want AI for. They want it to make things faster and you want to reduce costs,
Mhm.
right? Now, what they're finding out is AI costs more,
Costs money.
way more
Way more.
than hiring people because, again, they've got to spend billions and billions and billions, maybe even $1 trillion on the infrastructure behind AI, right? So when they first said it, they really didn't want to consider, or again, yes, they didn't have the information, but I think it's not as simple as just rolling out a new product, right?
Mhm.
And then after they rolled out the product, made the hot takes, fired all the people, then come to find out that there's no profit in it right now. And there may not be enough profit to cover the expenditures for a long time. Now they're hedging their bets and saying, oh, we need human interaction and we still need people to do this. When if that wasn't the case, they could care less. But again, that's how CEOs work, whatever works for their narrative right now is whatever going to take, which again is against my whole thing. It's like, this technology is so disruptive.
Mhm.
Y'all playing around.
Mhm.
This type of technology, we need to take our time and do
This
it
is
right.
generational technology
Right.
that's setting the groundwork for generations and generations to come.
Hey.
And they come out with these things after we've seen, all the layoffs and they're attributing it to AI. Again, I don't think it's because of AI. I think they think that
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to make people redundant. So they're
Mm-hmm.
letting these people go. And then they come to realize, I don't think they've come to the realization yet because I don't think it's hitting like it will,
Mm-hmm.
but they realized that, oh crap, we got rid of all these people because we said AI, these automations, all this stuff was going to replace the work that multiple people would do. They're flattening organizations, all the buzzwords that you think about. And they didn't take into consideration, the effectiveness without these people. And the other thing is, who is it? I think it was Uber. Yep, I looked it up. Who they've burned through their entire
Mm-hmm.
2026 AI budget with Anthropic
Mm-hmm.
in 4 months. So in
Yep.
April, so their full 2026 budget for AI that they used for their coding assistants, if you think Anthropic or people who use Copilot, those types of things, they've burned through all those tokens that they had allotted for the 4 year in less than 6 months. These are the
Mm-hmm.
type of things that people aren't accounting for. And I know some people and some companies are rolling back the expectation of people to use these AI chatbots and assistants in their work every day because they're burning through this money.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, it was we're spending all this money, so you better use it. And now that people are actually using it, they're spending it faster than what they expect. So it's like you can't have it both ways. You got to pick a side. So as I said before, having the skill set to be able to do some of this stuff in tech, um, I call it old school. Some of us old schoolers to be able to do this without AI is going to be a top tier talent separator. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they're going to kind of push for that to come back. And then you're going to have a whole handful of, software engineers and developers, scientists who aren't as effective without
Mm-hmm.
these tools. And then that's going to cause another set of problems. Are they going to have to have these people to be retrained? Or are they going to have to let them go and hire in, quote unquote, old school software engineers? So again, they put all of their weight, which I don't know how businesses think that is smart anyway, to put all your eggs in one basket. And then when that basket falls and half your eggs break, you're like, oh crap, what do I do now?
Perfect example. Google, right?
Hmm.
Google was so quick in response to OpenAI and the ability for me to open up a chatbot and search the web, right?
Hmm.
Based on scraping the data, right?
Hmm.
That Google turned around, and I read a story this morning how they're almost cannibalizing their meat and potatoes, meaning search,
Hmm.
like web search, for the sake of AI. And
That
the
AI
thought,
mode.
right? Because so when you go to google.com and you do a search, right?
Hmm.
You know, whatever the search is, you would normally get links,
Links. Hmm.
and Google would sell that top billing, that above the fold, those top spots.
Hmm.
They would sell that to advertisers. So if I had a link that I wanted to show up on the first page of Google when somebody searches my product, let's just take Snobbles Cast, for example.
Hmm.
When people say,
Tech
what's
podcast.
Apple Tech Podcast, right?
Mm.
I want Snob OS to show up at the top. So I'll pay Google for AdWords and all the things, whatever I got to pay
To get me at the top.
to get me at the top. OpenAI comes out. They say, open up ChatGPT, do a search. ChatGPT does all this analyzing, yada, yada, yada. And just based on what they've scraped, Snob OS will show up, right?
Hmm.
Google was like, oh, y'all doing that bet. So now if I go into Google and type in tech podcasts, Google will give me the answer and I don't have to click nothing.
Hmm.
So as a result, if Snob OS is just going to show up just off of vibes, right? I
Hmm.
don't no longer have to pay Google for the placement
Hmm.
because Google is doing the favor for me and just presenting the information as opposed to them giving me options and then I
To
have to go
select.
click,
Hmm.
right? So technically, Google is eating itself because they are cannibalizing search and that money they got from search placement to compete with OpenAI
Yeah.
that's just feeding you results.
Yeah. And that's the thing is they have to have a way to, unless they're going to sell, what you'll come up as the first option in our, we'll use you as a source uh in
But that
our
ain't
AI
AI.
mode. I don't know because like you said, they are, and I was on DTNS last week and we talked about this because this is the
Mm-hmm,
like the top thing that came out of Google I/O
mm-hmm,
is the way that they are kind of going more towards this AI mode. Right now, you still have to click AI mode to get this, summarized version rather than just the links. But I said to them, I was like, I think they're going to completely shift to make that the sole way you do search so it keeps you more in Google rather than having you go elsewhere. So maybe they put ads somewhere on, I don't know how they bake it in, but again, like you said, it's one of those things where their moneymaker is ads.
mm-hmm.
And how are they going to be able to make money
If I don't got to click on
outside?
ads.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. It's
It'd be
interesting.
it'd be interesting. And I guess the whole point is it's like they're moving so fast with AI that you're not thinking about
You're not thinking clearly.
you're not thinking clearly. And then what makes matters worse, right, is they're just treating it as it's just a new business trend.
Mm-hmm.
Companies are treating it like, oh, this is a new business trend. This is a new
Mm-hmm.
technology trend when AI is like more than that
Yeah.
because it's changing everything. It's changing where we live. It's changing how much we pay for things. It's changing how we use the internet. It's changing how we do our jobs. It has the potential to change all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, these CEOs and these tech bros are kind of like, how does the stock price look?
Yeah.
How do we keep that going?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, making all these changes that could potentially affect our lives in a major way, i.e., talking about how AI is going to replace jobs. Fast forward to how expensive everything is. Now they're like, oh, well, we still need people. You
Yeah.
only need people because the AI costs too much.
Yeah. Some short-sightedness, definitely lack of strategic planning and future proofing. So Yeah, they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. They're trying to figure out how to spin because they've said so much about how
Mm-hmm.
AI is going
To
to do
sell it.
all these things. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're having to kind of backtrack a little bit. So they got to
Yeah.
put some spin on it. So, yeah,
So they over promising and under delivering.
very much so.
All right. That's gonna do it for second string. We're gonna move into for the culture, and like I mentioned, big tech's DEI rollbacks and the Black creator backlash. So Meta, Amazon, Google, and Accenture have all scaled back or eliminated their DEI commitments. Black creators, brand owners, and consumers are responding. For example, Black owned brands are pulling products from retailers, and surveys show 75% of consumers say a brand's DEI reputation affects their purchasing decisions. I don't know if that's for the good or for the bad. I would hope it's, if y'all not messing with DEI, I ain't messing with y'all, but
Right.
they didn't get in specifics. But with the Trump administration also targeting DEI in government and universities, this has become more one of those defining business stories for 2026. So I wanted to get your advice on that question. Are people recognizing that these companies are rolling back, and is that affecting their purchase decisions, and then for the good or for the bad? Do people care whether or not these companies are investing in DEI as long as they get a good price and get what they need when they need it? Or are people actually saying, hey, man, y'all doing some strange things? Well,
Mm.
not strange. You're doing some very obvious things as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't like where y'all going. I don't like the way you're moving. So that is going to make me think more closely and carefully about the products, the brands, the companies that I choose to support with my money.
So if you go back to the whole Target boycott, there are still quite a few people who haven't gone back to Target. Obviously, there are some, but
Mm-hmm.
there's still a lot there. Target, the company, is still seeing some of the fallout from their DEI changes when this current administration came in the first time. And I think they're still struggling for that. I think it's one of those things where people did, it's like, well, as long as I get what I need, um, I think there's a pocket of people that did that. I think there are a pocket of people who are having that stronghold. But I think where we are now, people see not only just the effects that it's having on them personally in DEI, but the more we see the things that this administration does, I think, and not just on the DEI front, but when it comes to race relations, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to all these things, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like building blocks. And kind of DEI is kind of like the foundation. And a lot of people, well, that really doesn't affect me. That doesn't really bother me. Because if you think of DEI, and let's be honest, most people think DEI is just Black people. They
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that it's women. They don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that it's poor people. They don't realize that it's disabled people. They don't realize that it's veterans.
Mm-hmm.
They just think because it's been sold to them that
Mm-hmm.
DEI solely means and woke solely means Black people. And
Mm-hmm.
they are starting to see that DEI just isn't Black people. And a lot of times, I think a lot of people voted for this current administration is because they were like, oh, well, Black people aren't getting these things. So that's why I'm going to vote for it. But now the chickens are starting to come home to roost real hard. And they're saying that, oh, I was actually a DEI and I didn't realize it because
Mm-hmm.
I'm white or
Mm-hmm.
I'm this or I'm that. And I think people are starting to see that. And I think it's one of those things where it's not just Black people sounding the alarm and sounding the whistle. Other people are now seeing that they too
Are affected.
are affected when they
Mm-hmm.
just thought it was Black people. The same goes with the whole rollback of affirmative action. There are now people of Asian descent. There are people, I think, some white males. They're seeing now that they, even with the rollback of affirmative action and DEI in higher education, they thought that Black people, who make up 13% of the population, was taking things from them, not realizing that now that you don't have this barrier anymore, there's no race in admissions anymore. And the people who put up the biggest fight, who said that they were impacted, they're still being impacted because it wasn't just about Black people.
And
And
it wasn't just about taking things from white people.
Right.
It was correcting what was taken from us, and
Yeah.
it wasn't just giving us. It was just, you gotta look at us too,
Yeah.
because we are just as not worthy. We're just as, what's the word? We're
Competent.
just competent, right? DEI and affirmative action was, you have to look at them too, not you have to give it to them,
But it
right?
was sold as that. It was sold
Right.
as, oh, Black people are taking these over. Black people are taking these things. And I saw somebody put it in terms that I was like, you know what? This is right. They said, put two students side by side, a Black student and a white student. They have the same test scores. They have the same activities. They have the same, on the academic part, they have all the same things. They write good essays. But then you look at, say, the white student, and they come from a upper middle class family, and you see, say, a Black student that comes from a middle class or poor or underfunded school, they go to public school. You put those things into it, and then you see where the difference really is. Of course, you expect the white student or the white person to get into that school because they have all of the things that make them that set them up for success. And that's not bad. It's just that they have all those things. And then when you compare, if they have the same SAT score, they have the same GPA, they have the same activities, but then you have a student who has to work part-time or during school, or they have, a home life that they have to help take care of people. It's one of those things where when you start to look at those nuances, those are the things that say, oh yeah, while the white person who has all the things and has had, the right path to success, which all students should have, by the way. But we live in this country and we know that there are disparities. But when you look at the intangibles outside of just the X's and O's of grades and GPAs and activities, then you see where the difference is. And why shouldn't that student who has these same things, who have these same GPA and all the things, why the Black or minority student would usually be the student that was not taken, but they should be, because they have everything that it takes to get there, and they have these additional weights on them that cause that in most circumstances would cause them to be slower or to have less of the conflict. So it's one of those things where people just like to say it was taken from them because they already think that Black people are inferior by nature, and the only way they could possibly get somewhere is because something was given to them. And the fact that typically there are the have and the have-nots, and a lot of time in the have-nots, that includes Black people, Asian people, white people, all those things, and they pit the have-nots against the haves. And it's like, no, you're if you're a white person or an Asian person or other minority, if you're a non-Black person that are in the have-nots category, they try and make you think that you're the same as the have person when you're fighting against your own interests.
Yeah, hopefully people really start to pay attention to how these companies are moving, like I mentioned, and start to make their purchasing decisions based on that, because
money talks.
Right. And these companies, especially with this AI thing, you can see the example, company people, municipalities, concerned citizens are pushing it back against these AI data centers.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're not good for the neighborhood. Studies, scientists, all this stuff has shown. Hopefully the same thing can be done with people who are deciding what companies they support, and look and say the lack of DEI is bad for people, and I'm not going to spend my money there. Yeah, I'm not going to spend my money there either. Yeah. All right, so that's enough for Fold the Culture. We're going to move into the hookup, and this is a pretty simple hookup, but I wanted to show it to you anyway because I am starting to use it all the time. You can customize your alarm snooze duration. Of course, you got to have iOS 26, but if you do have iOS 26, you can ramp up or ramp down the snooze. Apple traditionally had it at 9 minutes, but if you go to the settings, go to clock, edit your alarm, snooze duration, you can change it down to as little as 1 minute or go higher than 9 minutes. And of course, there are people, depending on how you like to get up in the morning, being able to adjust your alarms as such is probably comes in the clutch versus you having to wait 10 minutes. You can change it to 1 minute and then maybe set an alarm. I've seen people where they set alarm at 9:01, 9:02, 9:04, 9:05, and it's like, all right, maybe Apple's like, enough. Now you can just change your
You can
snooze
change
duration.
it to whatever you need it to be.
Versus putting in all these hacks to get your alarm to get you to wake up in the morning. So that's my hookup for the week. If you need to change or customize your snooze alarm, you can do so in iOS 26. And Nica, if you don't have anything else, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To connect, comment, share, and support the show, please go to snoboscast.com to get all of the details. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.